They say that money changes people. But in my husband's case, money didn't change him. It just revealed the monster he had always been. My name is Lisa. I am 32 years old, and yesterday I spent 6 hours scrubbing a stranger's toilet to earn enough money to buy ground beef for dinner. My hands are cracked from bleach. My back aches constantly. I wear shoes with holes in the soles because I prioritize buying new sneakers for my husband, David, who claims he needs to look presentable for job interviews that never seem to result in a job. For the last 3 years, David and I have been drowning. Not just sinking drowning. We live in a cramped, drafty 2-bedroom rental on the wrong side of town. The heating barely works, so in the winter, we sleep in layers of sweatpants. David lost his job at the factory 3 years ago. Since then, he has been looking for work, but the economy is tough, or so he tells me. I carry the weight of our entire existence on my shoulders. I work 2 jobs, days as a waitress at a diner where the tips are meager, and nights as a cleaner for an office building. We have $40,000 in credit card debt. We argue about the price of milk. I haven't bought a new piece of clothing for myself in 4 years. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror to save $20. I have sacrificed everything, my dignity, my comfort, my dreams to keep a roof over our heads. Last Tuesday started like any other miserable Tuesday. It was laundry day, the most mundane, exhausting chore of the week. I was sorting through the pile of clothes on the bedroom floor. The room smelled of damp and stale air. I picked up David's jeans, the lucky pair he wears to his supposed interviews. I have a habit, born of poverty, of checking pockets. Sometimes I find a crumpled dollar bill or a quarter for the meter. Every cent counts in our house. I reached into the front right pocket. My fingers brushed against something stiff. It wasn't a gum wrapper. It was a piece of high-quality, thick paper folded into a tiny, tight square. I almost threw it in the wash, but curiosity or maybe intuition made me unfold it. I smoothed it out on top of the washing machine. The logo at the top was embossed in gold. Rolex Boutique, downtown. I blinked. I thought maybe David had picked up a piece of trash on the street. Why would he be at a Rolex store? Then I looked at the date. Yesterday. 2:15 p.m. At 2:15 p.m. yesterday, David told me he was at the unemployment office waiting in line. I looked at the item description. Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph Daytona, platinum finish. I looked at the price. My breath hitched in my throat. I actually grabbed the edge of the dryer to steady myself. $42,500, $42,000. That is more than I earn in an entire year working 2 jobs. That is enough to pay off all our debt. That is enough to fix the heating, fix my car, fix our lives. My eyes darted to the payment method. Paid in, cash. And at the bottom, the final nail in the coffin of my reality. Customer name, David Miller. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't found trash. My unemployed husband, who asks me for $10 for gas money, had walked into a luxury boutique and dropped 42 grand in cash on a watch. A cold, terrifying clarity washed over me. If he had $40,000 in cash, where did it come from? Drugs? Gambling? Or something else? He was asleep in the next room, taking his afternoon nap because looking for work is so exhausting. I needed to know. I walked into our bedroom. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would wake him up. He was snoring softly, lying on his stomach. I looked at his wrist. Nothing. Just his old, scratched Casio. I looked at the nightstand. Just a glass of water and his phone. Then I remembered. The closet. About 2 years ago, David had become weirdly protective of the closet floor. He told me there was exposed wiring under a loose floorboard in the corner, and that I should never, ever touch it, or I might get electrocuted. He even put a heavy box of old books over it. At the time, I believed him. Now I felt like an idiot. I moved the box of books. It was heavy, but adrenaline gave me strength. I pried up the loose floorboard. There were no wires. There was a sleek, fireproof metal lockbox. I tried to open it. Locked. But David is lazy. He's arrogant. He taped the key to the bottom of the floorboard I had just lifted. My hands were shaking uncontrollably as I inserted the key. Click. I opened the lid. I didn't find drugs. I didn't find a gun. I found the Rolex, gleaming in its green velvet box. I found a stack of cash wrapped in rubber bands. I counted it quickly. It looked like at least $50,000. But underneath the cash was the real smoking gun, a thick envelope from a law firm, Hartman and Associates, Asset Management. I pulled out the letter inside. Dear Mr. Miller, per your instructions, the monthly allowance of $150,000 from your $12 million lottery winnings, blind trust, has been successfully deposited into your offshore account. As discussed, the assets remain hidden from public record to ensure your privacy. I sat on the floor, the letter crumpling in my fist. The date on the letter was from 3 years ago, the same month he lost his job. He won $12 million. He didn't lose his job. He quit. For 3 years he has been a multimillionaire. For 3 years he has watched me wake up at 5 a.m. He has watched me cry over late notices. He has watched me age from stress. He has denied me heating, new clothes, and basic dignity. He could have changed our lives with a snap of his fingers. Instead, he decided to play a twisted game. He decided to keep it all for himself and treat me like his servant. I looked at him sleeping. He looked so peaceful. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab a lamp and smash it over his head. I wanted to wake him up and shove the letter down his throat. But then a cold, dark rage settled in my chest. Screaming wouldn't get me my life back. If I woke him up now, he would lie. He would hide the money. He would run. No. I carefully put the letter back. I put the cash back. I put the Rolex back. I locked the box. I replaced the floorboard. I moved the books back exactly as they were. I stood up and wiped the tears from my face. David Miller thought he was playing a game with a stupid, naive wife. He was about to find out that he had just declared war on the wrong woman. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to him, listening to his breathing, radiating heat and hatred. Every snore sounded like a taunt. I replayed the last 3 years in my head. The missed birthdays, the anniversary where he gave me a card he made out of printer paper because we couldn't afford gifts. It was all a lie, a sick, twisted performance. The next morning I called in sick to both the diner and the cleaning company. I told David I had a migraine and was going to stay in bed. "Poor babe," he said, kissing my forehead. "You work too hard? Try to rest. I have a promising interview today at a logistics company. Wish me luck." "Good luck," I whispered, pulling the covers up. "I hope you get what you deserve." He left at 9:30 a.m., wearing his worn-out interview suit, a jacket that was too big, and pants that were frayed at the hem. He drove away in his rusty 2010 sedan. I waited 2 minutes. Then I jumped out of bed. I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses. I got into my beat-up Toyota Corolla and followed him. He didn't go to an industrial park. He didn't go to an office. He drove straight to the city center, to one of the most expensive high-rise buildings in the district, the Meridian Tower. He pulled into the underground parking garage. I couldn't follow him in without a key card, so I parked on the street and ran to the lobby entrance. Through the glass doors, I watched him. He walked up to the concierge desk. The doorman smiled, high-fived him, and handed him a garment bag. David disappeared into a private bathroom in the lobby. 10 minutes later, he walked out. He wasn't David the unemployed factory worker anymore. He was wearing a bespoke Italian suit that fit him perfectly. The Rolex was on his wrist. He had changed his shoes to polished leather loafers. He looked like a king. He walked out the side exit and walked straight to a reserved parking spot on the street level. He pulled a key fob from his pocket. The lights flashed on a brand-new silver Porsche 911 Turbo. I watched my husband, the man who yells at me if I leave the lights on too long because of the electric bill, get into a $200,000 sports car. I followed him. It was hard to keep up with a Porsche and a Corolla that shakes when it hits 60 mph, but luckily, traffic was heavy. He drove to the Prime Cut, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. It's the kind of place where a salad costs $30. He met a man there, an older man in a gray suit. They sat at a corner booth near the bar. I parked and walked in. I kept my head down, sat at the far end of the bar, and ordered a water. I was terrified someone would kick me out for looking like a scrub, but the bartender barely glanced at me. I couldn't hear everything, but David was loud. He was drinking expensive scotch and laughing. "The divorce papers are ready, David," the older man said. It must be his lawyer. "Everything is structured through the blind trust. Since you claimed the ticket anonymously and moved the assets immediately, her name isn't on anything." My hand gripped my water glass. "What's the offer?" David asked, cutting into a steak that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "We offer her the Corolla, which is in her name anyway, and a $5,000 goodwill settlement to sign a fast, no-contest divorce. We tell her you're bankrupt and this is the last of your savings." David laughed. It was a cruel, barking sound. $5,000? That's generous. She's desperate, Mark. She'll take $2,000 if I cry a little bit. She's so stupid. She actually believes I've been applying for jobs for 3 years. "You don't feel bad?" the lawyer asked. "She's been supporting you." "Supporting me?" David scoffed. "She smells like cleaning fluid and diner grease. It's embarrassing. I deserve a woman who matches my lifestyle. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Next month is our 10th anniversary. It seems poetic to do it then. A clean break for a new decade." "Cruel," the lawyer smirked, "but effective. Just make sure she doesn't suspect anything until then. If she finds out about the lottery win before the divorce is finalized, and before we move the last of the funds to the Caymans, it could get messy. We are in a community property state." "She won't," David said, raising his glass. "She's too busy scrubbing toilets to look at financial records. To the good life." I pulled out my phone. I had the voice recorder app running for the last 5 minutes. I had him admitting to the winnings. I had him admitting to the fraud. I had him admitting to the plan to hide assets. I stopped the recording and uploaded it immediately to the cloud. I left the bar before he could see me. My legs were shaking, but not from fear anymore. David thought I was embarrassing. He thought I was stupid. He was right about one thing. Our 10th anniversary was going to be unforgettable, but not because of a divorce settlement. I was going to give him a surprise he would never recover from. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in psychological torture. I had to play the role of the dutiful, exhausted wife while knowing my husband was coming home from days of luxury to lie to my face. I cooked his dinner. I washed his interview clothes. I listened to him complain about how hard the job market was. "I almost got it today, babe," he would say, looking sad. "But they went with someone younger. It's just so unfair." "It's okay," I would say, forcing a smile. "We'll get through it. We're a team." Inside, I was screaming. I didn't sit idle. I took the day off work and went to the best divorce attorney in the state, a woman named Evelyn Shark, who specialized in high-asset fraud cases. When I played the recording for her and showed her the photo of the blind trust letter, her eyes lit up. "Lisa," she said, leaning across her mahogany desk, "this isn't just a divorce. This is fraud. This is malicious concealment of marital assets. In our state, judges hate this. If we can prove he hid this intentionally to deprive you of your share, the judge has the discretion to award not just 50%, but up to 100% of the hidden assets as a penalty." "Destroy him," I said. "I don't just want my share. I want him to feel what I felt for 3 years." Finally, the day arrived. Our 10th anniversary. David told me he had a big surprise for me. I dressed up in the best dress I owned, which was 5 years old and fraying at the seams. He took me to Olive Garden. Now, I like breadsticks as much as the next person, but for a multimillionaire who eats at prime steakhouses for lunch, this was an insult. He ordered the cheapest wine on the menu. He held my hand across the sticky table. "I know things have been tough, Lisa," he said, giving me his best puppy dog eyes. "But I wanted to get you something." He slid an envelope across the table. I opened it. It was a gift card. For $50. To Target. "I sold some of my old baseball cards to get that," he lied. "I know you need new shoes." I stared at him. The audacity was breathtaking. He was sitting there with a fake smile, probably planning to serve me divorce papers next week, and he gave me a $50 gift card. "Thank you, David," I said quietly. "I have a surprise for you, too." I reached into my oversized tote bag. "Oh?" He looked amused. "Did you pick up an extra shift?" "Something like that," I said. I pulled out a thick, heavy manila envelope. I placed it on the table between the breadsticks and the salad. "Happy anniversary." He picked it up, looking confused. "It's heavy. What is it?" He opened the flap. He pulled out the stack of papers. The first page wasn't a card. It was a court summons. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds. Fraud. Concealment of assets. Breach of fiduciary duty. Stapled to the front was a high-resolution color photocopy of his Rolex receipt. Behind that, the letter from the blind trust. And behind that, a transcript of his conversation at the steakhouse. David's face went through a transformation I will never forget. It went from confused to pale to gray to a sickly shade of green. He dropped the papers. His hands were trembling. "What? Where did you—" he stammered. "I know about the 12 million, David," I said, my voice calm, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear. "I know about the Porsche in the Meridian garage. I know about the penthouse, and I know you think I smell like cleaning fluid." He looked around frantically. "Lisa, keep your voice down. You don't understand. I was managing it for us. I was going to surprise you." "You were going to surprise me with a $5,000 divorce settlement," I cut him off. "But my lawyer filed an emergency motion this morning. While we've been sitting here eating breadsticks, the sheriff has been serving your asset manager. Your accounts are frozen. The Porsche is booted. The penthouse is sealed. You can't access a single cent." He stood up, knocking over his wine glass. Red wine stained his fake, poor man's shirt. "You can't do that. That's my money. I bought the ticket." "We live in a community property state, David," I smiled, leaning in. "Whatever you win while we are married belongs to us. But because you maliciously hid it, my lawyer is asking for the penalty clause. We are asking for 100%. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and threw a $20 bill on the table. "That should cover my salad. You're on your own for the rest. I'd offer to give you a ride, but I don't drive fraudsters." The legal battle took 6 months. David tried everything. He lied, he cried, he blamed his lawyers. But the recording of him calling me stupid and planning the fraud sealed his fate. The judge was disgusted. He didn't give me 100%, but he awarded me 80% of the total lottery winnings due to the severity of the financial abuse. I walked away with $9.6 million. David was left with the remaining 20%, but after paying his legal fees, the tax penalties for his shady offshore trusts, and the debts he accrued trying to fight me, he was left with almost nothing. I bought the house I always dreamed of, not a flashy mansion, but a beautiful farmhouse with a big garden. I quit my jobs. I started a foundation to help women in financially abusive relationships. And David? Last I heard, he's working at a car wash downtown, and yes, I did drive my new car there once. Just to get it washed, I didn't tip. This is twisted trust. Here is the lesson. Financial infidelity is just as destructive as adultery. If your instincts tell you something is wrong, if the math doesn't add up, if the pockets have secrets, trust yourself. Check the receipts, look under the floorboards, and never, ever underestimate a woman who is tired of being lied to, because the truth always comes out in the wash.